Hi, everyone. Today, what we're going to do is continue to go through our second book of the semester, Gary Allen Fine's Kitchens. So, when looking at this, we're connecting the dots between the subtopic of the social construction of reality and social psychology. And overall, we can say what we're looking at is a focus on the social psychology of social organization. So basically looking at how social organization, people working together to create a, functional reality that connects to the individual, the person, and how the person sees, understands, and kind of acts in these given situations. And the two need to come together for the organization to uh, be fostered as a whole. So we said that we're looking at the creation of social order in restaurants. So again, this interplay between what's going on personally and what's going on socially, and how the two come together to promote that functionality. And then we say that yes, the focus is on these four different restaurants and how they have to navigate similar social situations on that personal level to create order within the restaurants. But we also say we can apply this framework to other social organizations as well, to other work forms such as sports teams. So again, kind of keep in mind that yes, we're focusing limited on restaurants, but we can generalize this more openly to other organizations as well. And so we can say that, we're starting to look at how people manage these social barriers, these social obstacles. So in other words, you can't just, open a restaurant and expect things to go smoothly. You have to do certain things. You have to put in that personal individual work, but all the personal and individual work are kind of shaped and constrained by those larger social forces. So we looked at this briefly during our last class. We talked about how time as that larger social force often becomes a barrier you need to navigate to be functional. So often you come up with strategies to save time. You work ahead so you don't fall behind when the restaurant gets busy. Another social force you have to navigate to be successful is space. So the restaurant industry is a messy industry, but need to find ways to keep the customers pleased when it comes to cleanliness. And so what you do is kind of concentrate on cleaning and keeping up the appearances of the more public spaces that the customers can see. And then you can slack off a little bit on the more private spaces when it comes to cleanliness because the customers are not seeing those spaces. So finally, we looked at the issue of people, basically, the group of workers and how there needs to be more or less a level of harmony amongst coworkers. So if there are tensions going on, if people are gossiping, if they're fighting, and some people don't like being around each other, that's going to be dysfunctional for the restaurants, for the organization as a whole. So what you do to try to navigate this is you try to create and maintain this coworker harmony. And when you're successful doing it, people work together. But when you're not successful doing that, people are more about themselves. And when you're more about yourself than the group as a whole, that's when the dysfunction can emerge. And we'll come back to this issue later on today. So now we can move forward. So basically, the readings for today, we're going to talk about two things. So we can look at kind of how the restaurant operates and break it down to three different dimensions. One dimension being kind of the physical one, being called this the physical order. The second dimension being a social order. And then the third dimension being what we can call a symbolic order. So according to Fine, these three different orders all come together to create functionality, to promote productivity within a social organization. So we can look at them as a whole, but also we can separate the three and kind of look at the different problems that may emerge and how we can navigate those problems, how we can deal with those problems to promote functionality. So he says each form of order, so we can look at these as the physical order, the social order, and the symbolic order. they all have to function properly to achieve overall order. So you may have the symbolic and the social orders, but if you don't have the physical order, if the equipment's not working, if the space is not big enough, and then the restaurant's going to suffer. So you need to have all three in play to create functionality as a whole. So now we can get into the physical order. So here he looks at, you need to maintain physical order, and this has to do with issues of space and equipment. So potential troubles that could emerge here, potential tensions that could emerge here. One would be issues of space. When space is tight, too many people are trying to be crammed into similar spaces. You don't have enough room for people in other spaces, and that will create, again, dysfunctionality because people are bumping into each other. People can't get what they need to get in a timely manner. So we can navigate. We can try to navigate that barrier by limiting who can be where and perhaps when they can be there. So maybe at, days when you're not busy, times of the day when you're not busy, people can come back into the kitchen. People can come back and talk to people working back there. But during busier periods and busier days, you limit, who can be back in the kitchen. Because if the kitchen's trying to, juggle all these orders at once, and you have waiters kind of hanging out back there, then that could lead to problems. So to navigate this space issue, you can basically say you can be back here sometimes, but you can't be back here at other times. And then when you navigate those tensions successfully, then you can promote that function within the physical order. So another issue that could emerge here, again, is an issue of equipment. So basically here, the equipment may not be up to personal standards, specifically the standards of the cooks, the standards of the chef. So Fine talks about in your book how often the chef, the cook, is not happy, because there's always a better stove you could have, there's always, a better knife you could be using. So usually, he argues that people aren't happy with the equipment because there's always something better out there. So how do you navigate this tension if the equipment is not going to be up to personal standards? Well, the workers can compromise. They can say, yes, there's a better stove, but this does the job I need it to do. Or yes, there is a better knife I could be using, but I'm happy with this. This is good enough. So, the person has to compromise in the situation. And when they are compromising, then the tension is navigated. The order can be functional. Likewise, you could bring in your own tools. You're not happy with what's provided to you, so you bring in your own equipment. It'd be tough to bring in the stove, but you understand you could bring in your own knives, your own pans and pots. And so here again, you find a way to navigate that barrier that you're not happy with equipment that's provided to you. So either you compromise and kind of grin and bear, or what you do is bring in your own equipment so you are happy. So the same themes can be seen when people are kind of working within the social and symbolic orders. So social orders basically relate to your role you have as a worker and the responsibilities that are attached to your role. So the tension here can be twofold. Basically, you're not performing your duties. So, the cook isn't cooking the quality that's needed. The cook isn't cooking fast enough, the quantity that's needed. And the server is not properly serving the food, bringing it to the wrong tables, taking your time not to clear tables. So again, you're not doing what's attached to the role in which you find yourself. That can create dysfunction. So what do you do to kind of navigate that? How do you get workers to perform the duties that they're supposed to be performing? And here's where Fine gets into the idea that you need to understand that the organization, the social organization, is larger than the person. So it's not about me, it's about we. And when people get into that kind of shared mindset that it's about the team rather than myself, then you start to do what you have to do. And keep in mind that a lot of these jobs don't come with a lot of status. A lot of these jobs don't come with a high pay. So you lack sometimes the motivation to do your job. You're not making a lot of money, you're not getting a lot of status. So what can you do to motivate yourself to do your job and do it properly? You understand that it's about something bigger than yourself. It's about your coworkers. It's about the restaurant as a whole. So when you start to replace the me mentality with work with the me mentality or with the we mentality, then you can start to perform your role and do it properly, even though it may not be the best job in the world. You're still going to do it because you're doing it for something bigger than yourself. And so another potential problem that could be here in the social order is that people can be overwhelmed. So you're doing your best at your cooking, you're performing your duties as a server, um, as a busboy, but you're just overwhelmed. So here is where basically you can navigate this issue by people helping other people out. So yes, maybe I am, working more in the kitchen, but if I see a table that needs cleaned during a busy time, I'll go out there and do my best to clean the table. And, if I'm a server, I can see the kitchen's overwhelmed, but I can pitch out by doing a little thing here and there. Then, what I'll do is help out when needed. So again, it goes back to that first way to navigate the tension. It's not about we. I mean, it's not about me. It's about we. And you'd be more likely to help other people out when they need help, when you have that shared mentality. And so another issue could be that people are frustrated, like any type of organization. Sometimes people do get upset, do get frustrated at work. So how do you navigate this worker frustration? Is to let people speak their mind, to let people vent. So here, you can hold meetings, before work days, after work days, hold meetings maybe once or twice a week. And if people are frustrated about what's going on socially speaking, you can, kind of correct the disorder by letting people speak their mind, by letting them vent. So again, the physical order, connects to the issues of social space and the equipment. The social order connects to your responsibilities attached to your role and you performing those responsibilities correctly. So finally, we can look at symbolic order. And symbolic order is more about the social recognition that follows a chain of command, who kind of has the authority over whom. And the respect that kind of you should be providing your coworkers accordingly, and the respect that you should be receiving from your coworkers. So symbolically, we're looking at the idea of recognition and respect among coworkers. So potential problems, the potential tension can be there's a lack of respect in terms of that chain of command. People do have authority over you, but you don't listen to them. You don't pay attention to their orders. And so basically you can navigate this by sanctioning people, by, punishing them, whether it be, telling them that the next time they do it, they're going to be fired, or just firing them there on the spot, or giving them warnings in other ways. So, there are ways to sanction, ways to punish workers when they don't kind of follow the chain of command, when that respect is not there. And another thing about kind of the respect itself that could be problematic is when people don't earn the respect. So if you walk into the job and you think you're the queen of the castle from day one or the king of the castle from day two, then people may not give you the respect because you haven't earned it yet. So you have to kind of put in the work to earn the respect of your coworkers. And when you do so, that kind of symbolic harmony can be created and will exist. So again, here within the symbolic order, it can be problematic when people are not following the chain of command. And when you do that, basically you start to punish people for not doing so. And hopefully they fall in line so you can restore order. And another potential trouble area here would be when people are not earning their respect. They think the respect should be given to them rather than something that's earned. So to navigate this, you do what you have to do, you put in the hard work, and then as a result, you can earn the respect from others. So again, all three of those orders, the physical, the social, and the symbolic, coexist at once. And when they all work together, you have a functional restaurant, a functional organization. But take one piece of the puzzle away, and then the puzzle doesn't work anymore. You can have the symbolic, you can have the physical, but if people are not doing their jobs, then again, it's going to be dysfunctional. So you need all three pieces coming together. So how does that occur? How do organizations get these three pieces to be orderly so you can have social order as a whole? And so here is where Fine gets into the role of play, the role of leisure at work. So here I find it interesting because, often you hear a boss or you hear a coach of a team or a teacher in a class that says, hey, stop messing around, stop joking around, we got serious business to attend. Fine here, it actually argues that the joking around, that the messing around, that the fooling around is actually good for organizations. So the play at work, according to Fine, actually promotes a work culture where people have each other's back, where people do their jobs, where people respect one another, and people will compromise with space situations. They'll compromise with equipment issues if needed. So that only will happen if you have a culture in which people feel connected to one another. You have those bonds. And he says that work culture, where you feel connected and you establish those bonds, is built through the play that you do. The interpersonal practices of pranking, joking around, socializing kind of on and off the job, having nicknames for each other, for customers that may be coming in, for, again, you don't want to take it to the degree where people have hurt feelings or feel they're being kind of rejected, but it's all kind of in a playfulness where people can pull pranks, can joke around, and nobody kind of feels hurt, but people kind of feel that they're part of something, part of that culture. And this culture itself kind of lends itself to workers being encouraged to, participate in that physical order, participate in that social order, and participate in the symbolic order. When you share a culture and you have each other's back, you have that symbolic order. You respect people and you recognize the chain of command. When you have that work culture, you have each other's backs, you're going to do your jobs and help other people out when they need help. And likewise, when you have that work culture, when you have those bonds among workers, you're going to compromise when you're not happy with your equipment. You're going to compromise and be okay with when people tell you that you can't be in certain spaces in the restaurant during certain time periods. So again, it's an interesting argument. He says, you don't want to get rid of play at work because play at work is very functional because it's through the joking around, the pranking, all those things come together to create this work culture. And this work culture lends itself to people creating order in the physical, social, and symbolic spaces. So we'll leave that there for today. And we see kind of this last piece on leisure and play and nicely ties into one of the parts of the paper. So keep that in mind, keep this section of the book in mind when you start to begin the book report number 2. So I'll leave that there for today. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know.